the reality, all right? So, the reason I talk about 12-step is it's a framework, it works, it has its limits. Willpower is Not Enough is a decent book about recovering from addictions of any kind. Here's what it doesn't do. It doesn't really talk about the cultural piece. It doesn't examine the cultural piece. And that's one of the problems we found in treatment. Okay? Because here's what the science says. The science basically says you self-medicate an emotional problem depending on what the emotional problem is. That's the term, self-medication. That is, okay? Doctors are supposed to prescribe you medication for a particular condition, right? Because they're trained, and this drug will do this, and you do these lifestyle things, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what is the problem that alcohol is medicating? Or marijuana, or OxyContin, or whatever? What is the problem? Could be emotional problem. Okay? Anger, all kinds of different things. All right? Now, 12-step oriented programs, because it's not within the cultural framework of 12-step, doesn't recognize any problem outside of addiction. What if addiction's the symptom? That's the scientific view. Addiction's a symptom of some other wounding. How do you address that? Okay, so I'll use stories from, my practice. So here's a logical thing. And, well, I'm a drug counselor, so we basically talk life and death stuff all the time, all right? So if you are an African-American female, biracial, that is, mixed black and white, raised in Springfield, your black mom marries this white guy who calls you, sorry to say this over television, but this is what happened, a nigger bitch, while he sexually abuses you. You got issues? Yeah. Okay. With those issues, when you're self-medicating yourself with alcohol and other drugs, what should we deal with first? Well, we'll send you to treatment, right? You'll detox from the alcohol and drugs, but you still got these major emotional issues. Scientifically, the treatment professional should deal with it as it comes up, whichever is most important to you. Racism or sexual abuse. Why not deal with both? Just because I'm a man does not mean, most of the people who come to me are women. 75%, this is the data from the local area that's reflected nationally. 75% of women we see in treatment had sexual abuse issues. Should I be able to deal with that as a man? Come on, yes. Basic. Right? So what if the wounding is race? The science says you deal with it. What if it's sexual orientation? The science says you deal with it whether you're gay or not. This is basic stuff. But these folks, 12-steppers, say, oh, you're defocusing. The primary issue is addiction. And they kick you out. Not my opinion. Research-based fact from the state of Oregon. African American treatment completion has been declining since the 90s. Okay, except where they go to all black treatment centers, many of which don't exist anymore. All right, so this issue of culture. When I was co-chair of the Lane County Prevention Coalition back in the 90s, we brought this woman, Angela Arian. Angie is an anthropologist who studied cultures all over the world. She's Basque herself. And she basically said, okay, many of these cultures have the same elements that they teach to people to develop health. And that's the fourfold way. Now, here's one of the things that I found that has kind of influenced my particular philosophy. All human beings have culture. But for some reason, only people with excellent suntans are allowed to have culture. White people, so-called white people, say, well, my culture is white bread and mayonnaise. Like, what? What is this white bread and mayonnaise thing? What does that mean? Oh, I'm Heinz 57. Ketchup? Well, I'm a mutt. I don't know what I am. Okay. All right. I wasn't allowed to not know what I was. All right? You were something before you came here to Turtle Island. So America is the place that causes you to forget who you were. And in that forgetting, one of the things that you forget is some damage. Didn't say you could go to sleep. What's the matter with you? We're working. All right? So this book is designed to help you look at those kind of issues in a broad way. Gives you permission to think about culture in a way that America does not. So ask questions anytime. We used to have an email set up, but Cottage Grove at least has a two-way talk back. All right, the second boundary. As your inner healer develops, you must be responsible for your own health, truthfully acknowledging whatever conditions you experience. Okay? So when we talk about mindfulness, what mindfulness is being able to look at what is happening to you in real time. What your emotions are, where you feel your emotions, what you're thinking, etc., in real time, in the moment. Now, often what happens is that people, because of trauma, block. And then they're experiencing the block, and they're stuffing their emotions. Okay? Now, because I was not an addict alcoholic, but a drug counselor, I chose to self-medicate using food and therefore developed diabetes, which is not, according to the way society looks at it, an eating disorder. I think it's an eating disorder, personally. Okay? So wanting to, down salt peanuts, which salt raises my blood pressure, hypertension, and then eating more than I can exercise off, boom. Okay? Eating disorder. Because I'm high stress occupation, well, I can't use, so I'll eat to feel better. Because food is a drug, and that's one of the things we'll be looking at as one of the cleverly designed assignments. So I'll endeavor to give you, in this order, the most current empirical science, the best practice. Now, best practice is a term that comes out of empirical science. Empirical science means that a government or a university studied the subject, and the best practice comes out of those studies, which have then been replicated. So the gold standard for science in this area is 20-year studies that are replicated. So longitudinal, 20 years or more, a generation, and then replicated. So we know that you can pass on alcohol tolerance through your kids. We know that through 2 replicated Scandinavian studies that studied men and women, identical twins, the famous twin study. And the twins were taken out of their alcoholic home and raised in a non-alcoholic home, and they developed alcoholism higher than the quote-unquote normal population. And then they did that both for men and women. Boom, science. It's real, right? That's best practice. Community-defined evidence. Community-defined evidence means that there is science that is happening within a defined community that may or may not be studied by a university or a government. So community-defined evidence could be, I'm crazy horse, right? The Lakota war chief, and we will not trade our sacred land for alcohol. You will not use alcohol. That is not from us. These people are trying to take our land and kill us. Community-defined evidence. I am an official in China. The British are smuggling an illegal drug, opium, into my country. I take 14 tons of British opium and dump it in the ocean. The British go to war. China loses. And then British opium trade is protected in China. You may not know, according to federal law, it was illegal, against the law, for Native Americans to drink alcohol before 1952. So why do we have the stereotype of the drunken Indian? Because they were put on reservations, and Bureau of Indian Affairs agents operating out of what was called the War Department, and then became the Bureau of Indian Affairs, allowed the flood of alcohol into Indian reservations, and anyone who tried to stop it, who was a chief, was put in jail or killed. Chemical warfare. So I'm just saying, this stuff has happened. And not just to natives. It's happened to white folks too. But you didn't know it necessarily, because you thought this was all normal, that this stuff would be happening like this. It's not. Right? Community-defined evidence. So how does the Native community then fight alcoholism? How does the black community fight alcoholism, crack, HIV, et cetera, et cetera? All right? That might not be known in a university. Okay, but we develop effective strategies for that. All right, and then intuitional improvisation. That's somebody saying, "Oh, how do I get out of this problem?" Well, your own inner teacher comes up with a way of doing it. All right, so please, please, please ask the next question. Theodore Sturgeon, one of my favorite science fiction writers, actually had a science fiction bookstore here in Eugene, where he actually passed out medallions with this symbol, which is a question. He wrote a piece actually talking about this symbol on the left. But the idea is you ask the next question. The only stupid question is the one you don't ask, because a bunch of other people are probably thinking about it too. All right, so ask the next question. So in scientific terms, we're talking about health literacy. Like you learned your your Latin alphabet. That's technically what it is. Okay, the Romans alphabet. It's what you're learning. Your A through Z, Latin alphabet. All right? So, health literacy starts with print literacy. There's other forms of literacy, but health literacy is basically one of the things the course is intending to teach you. So it's defined as the capacity of an individual or group to create, obtain, interpret, understand, and utilize basic health information and services, and use such services and information services as well as practice what is optimally healthy. So a guy came into my office today. He said, "Well, I want to talk to you about a friend." No, really, a friend. He said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, I know, because most people come into my office and they say, I'm talking about a friend, and it's really talking about them because of the whole stigma around addictions and mental health stuff." Okay, yeah, I'm hip to the game. So, your friend, and it actually was a friend. So, basically identifying that he's a binge drinker. All right, so you're familiar with the terminology, and I'm concerned about my friend, too, because she's having the shakes. Is she an alcoholic? So I picked up DSM, which is the American Psychological Collection of Mental Illnesses and Addiction. Yes, technically she's addicted because she's going through withdrawal. That's one of the first tests. So you use the term binge drinking. What does that mean? I drink a lot. Let's put a spin on that. So I'm handing my standard sheet, which you will see in the course, but it goes like this. Alcohol is a drug. Now, I agree with President H.W. Bush, who said alcohol is a drug. It's probably the one point of agreement we have. Alcohol is a drug. So if it's a drug, and drugs come in doses, what is the effective therapeutic dose of alcohol? Now, notice what I just did. I said alcohol is a drug, which, Anheuser-Busch doesn't want you to think of alcohol as a drug. They want you to think of it as a lifestyle choice. Lifestyle when you're having fun, right? Leisure. But it's a drug. It's a metabolic poison. It's not a vitamin. All right, but it does affect your consciousness. So what would be the therapeutic dose? So what most people say, I'm playing with a concept, but I'm saying there is real pharmacology behind this. There is a quote-unquote safe use of alcohol, quote-unquote. There's a lot of caveats to that. But it goes like this. Blood alcohol level, right? You know what legally drunk is, right? What is it? 0.08, okay? The therapeutic safe dose of alcohol is 0.02. All right, so I weigh about 200 pounds. 0.02 is a standard 12-ounce beer, or a shot, or a glass of wine. Unadulterated, right? That's one dose. That puts me at 0.02. Now, what that does to me is put me at a level of disinhibition. Doesn't mean I take my clothes off. What it means is I will talk to strangers. Okay? Because it relieves anxiety, et cetera, right? So here's what happens. The industry is oriented to making money, so that they will sell you binge drinking doses, and you've been conditioned to think of, can I use this as a prop? The drink as the container it comes in, without noticing that there are several doses in the container. And then they sell you multiple dose containers as a single serving. Hence, Long Island iced tea is 5 to 6 doses. 1 40-ounce of malt liquor is a 6-pack in dosage. Okay, you buy a screwdriver in a bar. They put a dose or 2 of vodka, but you make one at home, you pour into a 8-ounce or more drinking glass, half vodka and half orange juice. Am I lying? No. Okay, so there's 4 doses there. All alcohol problems come from an overdose of that drug. We would not think it normal behavior for you to eat 3/4 of a bottle of aspirin. We'd see that as a suicide attempt. So why do we think it normal behavior to drink a case of beer? Yo, Joe Six-Pack don't drink no 6-pack. He drinks a case. I'm just saying. Because I've observed the behavior starting in high school. I was a high school drug counselor. The star quarterback, which I'll tell you about in a later date, basically, drank a case. Because that was normal behavior for a high school quarterback. Coach turned the other way, a blind eye, as long as they were winning. This attitude does translate into college and into the pros. You think these people develop a cocaine problem in the pros? No. So I'm just saying here, what's optimally healthy? So it's the practice of just enough, not too much. Balance rather than indulgence. So, enough is enough. That's enough. More than enough is clutter or indulgence. So, to teach that balance, I'll give you a series of exercises, internal strength building exercises, cleverly designed as assignments. They are the social recon, food mood diary, how I spent my week diary, give it up, things that make you go, So, in addition, you can also do an extra credit research paper on any topic relevant to addiction on your own, something that interests you.